Last time on the WizardCast.
Why so glum, Brian?
You mean aside from the fact that you tied me to this chair?
It's for your own safety.
Well, it's just that I feel like I've failed to really put this podcast on the map. I mean, we've had 90 episodes. 90! And my recent attempts to spice things up really haven't worked out the way I hoped they would.
Wait. You're telling me that those attempts at being a lame radio DJ, a late night host, and whatever the heck the last episode was, were just you trying to spice up the podcast? Not because you're actually losing your mind or anything?
Well, yeah, I want to make our podcast hot and spicy like jalapenos.
Jalapenos.
But, nothing I do works, and you hate me now.
Oh, Brian, I don't hate you. Well, not hate exactly. Look, it's a co-host thing.
And then, to make things worse, I got this memo.
Yeah, okay. This from the CIO. It's a memo requiring us to have a disaster preparedness plan. Wait, we have a CIO?
I mean, apparently IT claims that our SQL driver array technical net systems aren't up to date enough to handle a 3-digit episode number, and everyone is freaking out that if things don't get fixed, it's going to be an absolute disaster and no one will know what to do.
Oh, my, yeah. No, I can see that, I guess.
I mean, I can't even imagine what Amy from Carpool or Bill from accounting would do. I mean, oh my gosh, let alone the interns and poor young Peter from Taste Test. I mean, he's just starting a family,
Ooh,
I mean, what are we going to do, Mark? I mean, what are we going to do? I don't know how to prepare for a disaster. It's going to burn. It's going to burn. Oh, burn.
And now the conclusion of the WizardCast.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create WizardCast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome to the WizardCast. Mark, my doctor prescribed me an anti-gloating cream.
Anti-gloating? I can think of a politician or two that could use that. I didn't even know such a thing existed.
Yeah, I can't wait to rub it in.
Oh, well, that wonderful joke was submitted to us by Andy Hayworth. Thank you, Andy.
Yes, Andy, thank you. You can submit a joke to us too and make my job easier by either emailing wizardcast@thewizardnews.com, or you can leave your joke in a voicemail message by calling 608-492-0321. Just remember to give us your name and your message so we can give you credit.
So, Brian, what is that sign that's behind you? It says 90. Yeah, I can't make it out. It's just a big red 90. Is that how many days since we last had a workplace accident? Because last week you did let that tiger loose in the office.
No, not that. No, this is a sign about our special episode today. It's our 90th episode.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, apart from 90th, what's so special about it?
This is our 90th episode without Parker Harris as a guest.
Well, yeah, we've never had Parker Harris as a guest.
I mean, it's almost as special as our 91st episode without Parker Harris.
I have no response to that.
And now another of our increasingly frequent segments of Salesforce Purchases the World.
It was announced on May 8th that Salesforce is acquiring Tel Aviv-based conversational AI startup Bonobo. That's a company, not the monkey.
I haven't seen any official disclosed financial terms, but I found this article from CTech that puts the deal about $50 million.
Yeah, Bonobo develops conversational AI technology for online interactions.
Yeah, so think about dealing with an artificial intelligence when talking on the phone, chat, video, or email.
Yeah, no, I've seen things like that Google's developing as well. It's some interesting stuff. I wonder if this is soon going to be called Einstein Bonobo. I'm envisioning a Einstein mascot with a monkey suit.
I wonder if Bonobo used their own AI to respond to Salesforce acquisition requests. I see you're asking to purchase Bonobo. Click on one of these knowledge articles or click here to submit a case. I do like the idea of, I was thinking actually not Einstein in a monkey suit. I was thinking of more like an actual Bonobo, but with an Einstein like style haircut and glasses, you know?
Oh no.
What?
Oh no.
What?
Bonobos aren't monkeys, they're chimpanzees.
Oh, historically called the pygmy chimpanzee.
Aren't chimps are apes, right? Not monkeys?
Chimps, I believe, are chimps. So, okay. See, now we're going through
Today on WizardCast, Googling.
live on the WizardCast, live Googling to see if
Yeah.
our terrible jokes actually make any sense.
Yeah, no,
No, it's
I
a
was
part
wrong.
species
They are
of great
apes.
ape.
Bonobos are apes. I'm going to be on the hit list now.
We on the WizardCast would like to provide an official retraction of a statement Mark had uttered earlier in this episode. Due to a memo we just received from our research department, we have discovered that bonobos are indeed not monkeys. They are great apes.
We regret the error. I regret not Googling it sooner.
Sorry to bonobos everywhere. Our guest today has been a product manager over at Salesforce for over 5 years and has worked on a variety of products from Community Cloud to Chatter. And we got to know him because of his work on Flow, Process Builder, and the Next Best Action. And then he betrayed us, Mark. He went over to the Quip team.
A2 Bose, A2.
Which would make a lot of sense when you know that our guest today is Arnab Bose.
Was it Bose?
Is it Bose? Is it Bose?
It's Bose.
Yes, but I had to do the brute, right?
I know, yeah. I see where that's coming from. So.
They can't all be
Yeah,
winners.
so that joke instantly does not make any sense.
No.
Yeah.
I thought it did. I stand by it.
It doesn't have the same sound quality as Bose.
Oh, I'm sure he never hears that joke, Brian. So thank you for joining us, Arnab.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me onto the show, even though I've betrayed you guys and gone over the team. But I'm excited about what I'm working on. So hopefully WizardCast listeners, as well as you guys, would be excited as well.
So before you get into what you're doing over there, for the handful of people who are not listening to Salesforce marketing messages, what's Quip other than a toothbrush?
I can't tell you how many times I've heard the toothbrush thing since I joined.
They sponsor NPR. I mean...
More than the Bose thing, I'm sure.
The Bose thing I've been hearing all my life. The
Okay.
Quip thing has only been for the last 4 months or so. So yeah.
Man.
Yeah, so Quip is a productivity platform. And when most people interact with it for the very first time, what they see is they see a document editor that can actually work really well on the phone, and a kind of a clean authoring canvas that's optimized for getting your thoughts out there. And the really interesting thing about it is it actually kind of is way more than a document editor, but doesn't bring any of that complexity to bear for the end user when you just start picking it up and going.
Well,
And
when
what I mean by
you
that-
say document editor, you're not just talking about like a word processor and, you know, there's spreadsheets there, there's slides, there's a chat room. And
That's exactly right. Yeah.
you can have these weird combinations of all three in one doc, right?
That's exactly right. So that's what I meant by it's a productivity platform, and it's all kind of combined in one. So most other apps that were built earlier on in the day for these kinds of authoring and productivity needs, they ended up becoming very kind of separate individual applications that are put together in a suite. They kind of mimicked existing kind of pen and paper processes. Like PowerPoint is originally derived from replacing overhead slide projectors. So it has a lot of functionality in it that is built and designed to mimic that, because they were trying to convert over that user base to something that
Which is hilarious, because now most people who use that will have no idea what's a projector.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
You know,
a slide projector, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I wonder how many people who are using a presentation software today, like, have actually even like physically interacted with overhead slides. But a lot of the constructs, well, you and me, and maybe Mark, but
we're old.
But yeah, I mean, so the people's kind of expectations have changed. We are way more mobile. We don't really need those kinds of interaction patterns that remind us of physical legacy tools anymore. Mm-hmm. And so the interesting thing about Quip is it's sort of bringing together all of the different ways in which you need to communicate and collaborate into a single consolidated experience. So as you were saying, Brian, like, you know, you can start off as a document, but you can just hit the add button and type in spreadsheet and embed a spreadsheet directly in there. And it's not just a table. It has full spreadsheet capabilities like functions and formulas. You can bring in data from Salesforce. Like, that's a little bit of the thing that I'm focused on right now.
A little bit of a thing?
My primary thing. And you can bring in data from other third-party systems. Like, we have a pre-built Jira app. We have an App Exchange store where you can bring in content from TaskRay or Altify, which does account plans. You can have like an integrated chat conversation about the document. So there's a conversation pane where you can have real-time conversations by mentioning people. In fact, I think the three of us actually put together a little bit of the show flow for this podcast in a Quip doc that I shared out with you guys, and we were mentioning each other and sort of setting up the specific
for more than that, I should say, when we first got started with the podcast, we used Salesforce to write our scripts, and I still use it for episode management to a certain degree. But when Quip came out, we moved from Quip because what I was doing a lot of was using Google Docs, doing a copy and paste into Salesforce because I found editing a rich text fields really sucked in Salesforce for anything of extensive length. So we use Quip for all our scripting. We didn't share it with you because you don't want to see our terrible, terrible bad jokes that are in here. But yeah, we're very familiar with Quip. We like Quip a lot. Because for, one of the things I always like to see is I'll write the script, and then after harassing Mark for about a week and a half to read it, he will go through and I can see what additions and changes he's made. We can make comments right on little sections, so I can say, hey, Mark, I'm not really confident about this joke or whatever, and he can go in.
Don't go saying like you had the script ready for 10 days. No, Brian. I'm not letting you get away with that one.
Yes, it's been 12 days. And so that, from that standpoint, yeah, we're very familiar with Quip, but we're not very familiar with the Salesforce and Quip component. I tried it a little bit when it first came out for Better Partners, the company I work for, but other than that, I'm basically clueless. So be my Obi-Wan and educate me.
Yeah, so the thing that got me quite fired up about this was, when I originally, when I first started at Salesforce, I worked a little bit on the Files platform, but for a while after that, I worked on Chatter. And the thing that was really exciting to me about Chatter was the ability to have conversations about a Salesforce record in the context of the record. So, if you're working on an opportunity or a case, the ability to have like a feed right there where you can mention people, bring them in, ask questions, or announce things like, hey, this important strategic opportunity just closed, whatnot. There's a vast number of reasons why that was a much better way of working than having to switch over to a different application and send an email or an IM and reference things and send links around and whatnot. And I know there were a lot of people who use Salesforce today and in the past who benefited a lot from Chatter. So I had that experience. But when I saw Quip and the ability to actually bring Quip into the context of Salesforce, I saw an opportunity to kind of revisit that collaboration and context story at a completely different level. So what I mean by that is some of the things that are possible now because, Quip has a really interesting automation API and a capability to kind of...
Wait. I'm sorry. Did you say there's an automation API for Quip?
Exactly. There is. And so given the thing that I did in between that got you guys and me kind of put together around Flow and Process Builder and whatnot, that's another thing that I'm quite excited and interested in. So I've worked in collaboration and collab platforms, both at Salesforce and before. And I've worked on automation and automation platforms at Salesforce. So
okay, this is too puzzling to me. It's a document.
Yeah.
What is there for automation in a document?
There's a lot. I mean, so let's take a look at a use case would be, let's say an opportunity. I'm just choosing a very basic standard object, but it can apply to like any custom object or app you've built in Salesforce. But let's say an opportunity goes into a negotiation stage, and you need to rally your team as a salesperson. You might need to get an approval from, let's say, your manager for a discount, or maybe you need to make sure that the kind of requests that the customer is having that maybe are one-offs are approved by legal. Instead of having 2 or 3 different email threads about it with the with the various individuals involved, all of which is causing data to get pushed out of CRM, which can't be actually tracked back and all that kind of stuff. What if, as soon as it hit that stage, there was a templated document with the right set of questions to be asked and the right sort of fields to get filled out that gets created, that instantiates itself inside of the opportunity and automatically brings in the people who need to go ahead and help you out with the next steps, like your team or your manager. So that's the kind of thought I had, which was like, there's probably a bunch of things that people are doing manually that are kind of mundane administrative tasks that are forcing them to kind of live outside Salesforce, forcing them to copy paste a bunch of data, and like really taking their mind off what it means to get their work done. So that's kind of the thesis behind me kind of joining Quip in a way. Like if I had to distill it down, this idea that, well, Quip is awesome as a collaboration tool and a productivity platform and all these kind of real-time experiences that it brings to bear. And you guys use it, you've kind of seen it for, collaborating on scripts and I'm sure a bunch of other use cases. But what if we could make that relevant to every single Salesforce person in their actual process of getting work done? And so that's the place where I started off maybe in January, February of this year. That got me excited and, brought me to the team. And then I can talk to you guys a little bit more about like a whole host of other things we've ended up building in the process to make that end-to-end use case like really shine.
Yes. Yeah. I also need to write an email as soon as we're done recording this, sending a ticket to enterprise systems and CCing you so you can tell them to enable this.
Yeah.
Heck, so, I want this in the dev. It could replace the rich text field from the script. So I could just have our Quip script in our Salesforce.
Yeah.
Well, it's a dev org, so I'm kind of cheating, but yeah.
Yeah, so Brian, I mean, maybe like I'll take your use case, right? I don't think I've seen it fully fleshed out end to end, but I have a rough idea. I think you're using a custom object to track, these episodes, and there are stages probably or some sort of field on the object to sort of track whether the episode kind of plan has been figured out or not, whether it's been recorded or not, whether it's been edited or not, and when you're going to publish it. I'm making some of the stuff.
No, actually, that those are almost exact statuses. It's, hey, it's draft mode. It's ready for review. It's ready to record. It's waiting for publish. It's published. That's almost exactly what it is.
Great. So let's play that out, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, let's say you didn't have access to Quip. What you would have done is you would have tracked all your work in Salesforce and used it as a project management tool. But you would have written up the actual script in Google Docs or Office or whatever, some note-taking tool. And then basically associated these things with links. And then if Mark or somebody else had to kind of catch up on, okay, it says that it's in a ready to record stage, but what does the script actually say? They'll have to click on that link and kind of follow it down that rabbit hole. So lots of like switching back and forth and pretty much every time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, pretty much every time you're writing a script, even though the rough outline of a WizardCast episode is kind of similar, you're having to rewrite that all up again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a skeleton, and that's about it.
Yeah. So what we launched with Quip for Salesforce in spring, I'll start with spring, and I'll give you guys a bit of, I guess it's not a sneak peek anymore because summer's already in sandboxes and a whole bunch of people have them. But yeah, and I can then come back to summer. So in spring, we launched a Lightning component called the Quip document component, and you can embed that onto any Lightning page. There are a few different ways in which you could set it up. You could set it up so that it always has the same document, visible. That might be an interesting way to sort of post something that's possibly like a read-only set of instructions or notes. I can see that in use sometimes in on objects where you need to have like objection handling or some sort of call notes that are always visible, but it's controlled by somebody who's maybe in marketing or sales ops, and it doesn't change frequently.
A standard call script or something like that, yeah.
But the thing that is more interesting to me is there's also an ability to have that component point to a template. And we support these Quip templates, which can be authored using like a Salesforce formula field syntax. So, for example, you could have something that says, again, I'm making some of this up. Like, let's say your custom object is called episode.
It actually is, yes.
and let's say it has a field in it called title or description. So what you could do in your template is, let's say in the title, you could actually put in double square bracket episode dot title close double square bracket, or double square bracket episode dot description close double square bracket. And when you clone the document, like when you see that component show up in your episode object, there'll be a button that says create new document from template. When you click on that, it'll actually fetch all of those fields from the surrounding object and pre-fill that content. Now you've got two things. Now you've got this collaborative document canvas that is visible to you right inside Lightning, right where you're working. And it's also been kind of filled out for you with as much detail as the record already has.
So all this stuff that we're talking about, because I know you can embed Quip docs right now.
Yep.
That is a thing that exists. But the other stuff, the automation API and the formula, like, does this exist now, or is this safe harbor coming soon kind of stuff?
So this all exists now. So yeah, exactly. Right.
People aren't talking about it very much.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty new. It takes a while for net new things within Salesforce to get picked up. Like when I worked on Process Builder and Flow, one of the interesting things about it was it had been around for like 4 or 5 years, maybe longer, before I started. And so it had like a steady following of people who are enthusiasts and using it every day. So there was definitely a benefit to that, because it also, as a product manager, it gave me like a really easy set of people to test beta and pilot functionality with. Like I tested the Flow Builder with you guys.
We appreciated that.
As well as a really interesting base from which to get usability feedback and kind of just what's preventing adoption, whatnot. But with something brand new like this, we are kind of in the super early stages of that adoption curve, where we have some customers who are live in production already, but they were Quip customers already. So they were existing customers who were using Quip, who were also using Salesforce. And so it just made sense for them that they already had the licenses, so they would turn on the integration. We kind of started with them. But yeah, I mean, just Mark, to go back to your question, yes, the mail merge functionality has been available since spring. The automation API pieces are what's new in summer, and
so coming very soon.
Coming very soon.
Good.
Yeah, and again, I'll explain that a little bit. Quip has always had an automation API which you could hit directly, against our API endpoints. That's been around for a couple of years now, actually. But specifically, the thing that I'm excited about is we've now brought the ability to act against those automation, that existing automation API directly from Salesforce. Like we've got a whole bunch of 11 different pre-built actions in Process Builder and Flow now. So now I'm kind of like going back into stuff that I built in my previous role and leveraging that again. But yeah, I mean, as you guys know, like Process Builder and Flow are super awesome in terms of unlocking the full capability of the platform. Like really helps you put together these end-to-end use cases where you can leverage actual record data changing, what we in Salesforce product line would call DML operations, plus activity outside of Salesforce via external services or events. And now it also lets you take action directly against Quip.
So you made a comment about the whole merge thing, right? When our semi-fabricated example, you getting like the subject of the podcast put into the template.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a one-time thing, or is the API and these merge things sufficient? So like if I go through and say, oh, that's a terrible, crappy title, and I changed the name of the record, the title in the record, can it sync back to the document after the template's already gone through the process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we started out with it being a one-time thing just to pre-populate the document. But now there's actually a couple of different ways in which you could sync things bidirectionally. So there is a feature now that actually it's been available for a few months, which is called the Salesforce Record Live app. So Quip has live apps for those who are unfamiliar with Quip, and what that means is, we have content that we ship natively, like spreadsheets and documents and slides and images and whatnot. But you can also leverage things that we build as a first party, like a Salesforce record, or a third party like TaskRay or Altify, and bring it into your document. And so one of these first party live apps is the Salesforce Record Live app. If you hit the @ button and type in Salesforce, it'll show up. And it lets you actually pull in a Salesforce record, like a detail view. So if you pull in, let's say, the episode object, you'll get a choice of, it'll first pull in the compact layout, the fields in it, and then you can add other fields or remove things and rearrange them. And it basically it requires you to sign into Salesforce once and basically give Quip an OAuth token. Once that's done, though, that syncs bidirectionally and stays up to speed. So let's say you have a status field that you want to change. So going back to our made-up example, maybe Brian and Mark have started writing up the episode call notes, and at one point in time, they're like, yeah, this is no longer a draft, we're ready to go. And you're in Quip at that point in time when you're like having that real-time conversation and you come to that agreement. With the Salesforce Record Live app, you could flip the status right from inside of Quip, and it'll sync it back into Salesforce. And it can trigger, like, again, going back to some of the stuff that we used to talk about, and I'm still happy to trigger processes. You can trigger workflow rules, whatever, because that thing changed. I'm pretty fired up about this, frankly, because it's kind of an interesting coming together of things that are unstructured and real time and pretty fluid, along with the full power of the Salesforce platform, where you can leverage record data, leverage automations, and all that kind of good stuff.
Okay, so I think I see some potential to this, and we've been using, the WizardCast, using their scripts in Quip as kind of an example. But, like I said, this is new. And, just like Process Builder and Flow had, a lot of people struggle with use case. Like, how can I actually use this tool to do what I need? And a lot of times they don't realize there's a need out there that could be addressed now, or even that you could do something to address something that no one realized was a need. So what are the common use cases? Obviously it's going to have to be business related, because that's pretty much what everyone uses Salesforce for, right? Business and nonprofit. So what are some of the common use cases you have seen people use this type of automation and integration for? Or, maybe you haven't seen it, but you can see the potential for someone doing it.
Yeah, I'll kind of walk folks through two use cases that we're actually using very heavily within Salesforce. So it'll be like a Salesforce and Salesforce story. One is a couple of months ago, we rolled out account planning using Quip for all of Salesforce's account executives, all our salespeople. And what this is within the account record in our own instance of Salesforce, which we fondly call Org62. Mark will now know what that is or have seen it.
He's going to be in there twice now.
Yes, exactly, or many times probably. Under the account record, for every salesperson, now there is a templated account plan. And why would you want an account plan? Well, normally what used to happen, or before this process was in place, is every sales account executive used to come up with like their own format for documenting what they wanted their selling strategy to be for every account. And those sometimes lived on either Google Drive or their personal computers. They might have been attached to the account in the chatter feed or on the files tab, but they weren't super visible. They weren't standardized, and they weren't designed in a way where, let's say, if your account team is large, maybe you're the global account manager for a large customer, and then you have other folks who are working on other deals across the company. There wasn't really an effective way for them to all work together inside of Salesforce. So we rolled that out, and if you search for Quip account planning on Google, you'll find that we've actually put out some best practice templates on our Quip site. Nice. And I think the last time I checked, within the last 3 months or so that account planning has been live within Salesforce, over 4,000 account plans have been published. And a lot of account execs I speak with are I used to use Quip a lot for taking one-on-one meeting notes and using it as a note-taking app on my phone. But now that you've kind of brought this account planning use case to bear, it's fundamentally changed the way they get work done, which is kind of a cool thing. The second thing is to go to a second use case that we're using it, again within our team, is creating a live feed of updates on opportunities and records that you care about. And this is actually using some of the new process builder stuff. So I'll walk you through it. So let's say as a sales team, you have some strategic high-value opportunities that you're tracking for a quarter. You can create a report in Salesforce, and we recommend you do that. That's awesome. But you can also export that report into Quip. Why would you want to do that? Well, once you've exported into Quip, there's an option to export it as live data, so that report always stays in sync in your Quip document. And now with Process Builder, what you could also do is you could write a Process Builder process or process that fires whenever an opportunity that meets the criteria of your report changes a stage or is closed won. And an action that we've shipped out of the box in summer is sending a message on the Quip document. So let's say I'm a salesperson and I close a strategic opportunity. I'll just go into Salesforce or Salesforce Mobile and I'll change the stage. That will trigger an automated process builder process that will post on the live feed of that document as me saying, hey, everyone, we support @everyone_mentions. So everybody who's subscribed to that strategic live deal feed document will get a push notification via Quip on their phone or on their computer. And it'll draw them back into the document, and there'll be a little automated message from me saying, I just closed this particular deal, link to the deal, this was the amount, and this is the account name. And then the live data report will also update simultaneously. So you can see, cells turning green if you have conditional formatting. You can see charts getting updated, and you can effectively rally your whole team around somebody doing well in your sales organization. So it might it might seem like okay, I could potentially go back into Salesforce and sort of look at that report. Yes, you can totally do that, and that's fundamentally the data that's backing it. We need that. But that's not a multiplayer kind of live experience. Once it starts coming into Quip, you have access to reactions,
you get everything on one screen, right? Yeah. You don't have to go back and forth, swivel chair between apps.
Exactly. And then if the three of us, let's say, are on that sales team, we'll be getting push notifications as people are doing well all the time. So it sort of just builds that kind of instant response to actually seeing your CRM data change. So yeah, I mean these are the kinds of things that are kind of exciting to me because there's so much data and interesting information in CRM, and the ability to go ahead and trigger processes and apps using the full power of the platform. And Quip is kind of an interesting engagement layer where you can bring some of that business data with you and start engaging in it in a very modern and social way.
All right, so I'm curious, since you said there's an action in Process Builder to be able to say, hey, go send the notification to this Quip doc. How are you selecting what the Quip doc is in the action? Is there a hard-coded ID for the doc that you're shoving in there? Or
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of ways to do it for like a strategic review like this. Like if it's only a certain set of people who are gonna or whatever. If there's a known document that most people are subscribing to, you could hard code the doc. But the process builder actions also let you pick from fields on the record. I'm just trying to think through the best way to explain this. Maybe a good example would be for any document that is embedded using the Quip document Lightning component. That Lightning component is actually backed by a custom field, which stores the URL for the document. So you have that data within Salesforce. So, for example, if you wanted to send a message back to the account plan for a specific account when an opportunity that is parented to that account closes and it's above a certain threshold, well, when the opportunity closes, you can look up its parent account, and on the parent account there'll be a custom field which will have the URL for the document that is embedded in that account, and that way you don't even have to hard code anything.
Sorry, I'm thinking now.
Yeah.
If you can see a little hamster running around on the wheels right now, it's okay.
Well, and hopefully that's what's happening to the listeners too. Like if they're driving with listening to this podcast, pull over. Don't think and drive.
We're talking to you, Pete.
Yeah, I know. Like this is a combination of many things. Like it's a combination of Quip, which might be new to some people. It's a combination of that plus custom fields and Lightning components.
It's like a weird amalgamation of everything you've been doing at Salesforce for the last 4 years. It's got a bit of chatter. It's got a little bit of automation. It's got a little bit of Salesforce files, kind of like all mixed together. Are you like Dr. Frankenstein? And this is your Frankenstein.
Well,
I've tried so hard not to do a Fred Bruger joke right now. God, I'm really dating myself with young Frankenstein. But I mean, is this your Frankenstein monster?
I hope it's a little more elegant than that,
Is it afraid of fire?
I don't think it's afraid of fire really, but yeah, don't drop your iPhone in the
Well, don't do that anyway. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, I think those are two interesting use cases that we've seen go live already within our team, and then there's a whole bunch of other things that are kind of interesting. Like I was working with another product manager who's on the field service Lightning team, and are you guys familiar with the field service app? It's
a little bit.
Yeah.
I know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool because it's very mobile focused. It's meant for these deskless workers who
tracking all the technicians out in the world and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of bringing the power of Salesforce to them. Like previously, maybe they were using pen and paper and having to like document a bunch of stuff. So the interesting object for field service Lightning is work orders, and from the point of view of a business actually like trying to run a field service operation effectively. They need to make sure that the estimated time for servicing or completing a particular work order is more or less accurate, because they're kind of basing all of their routing and schedules, everything else based on those estimates. So what that product manager was telling me was, hey, if somebody closes a work order and the amount of time it took them to finish it is dramatically different than the estimate, then it would be cool if we could automatically trigger a retroactive review of what happened, like what caused that work order to take so much time. And that usually takes people who may or may not be living inside of Service Cloud. They might be engineers, they might be product people, other people in the company, and normally this will end up being like some conference call that takes like 2 weeks to schedule, and most of the time is spent like figuring out the context. So is there a better way of doing this work? And so we were pretty easily able to leverage the Quip document component and the process builder automation to like totally change the game, because again, when the work order is closed, you can have a process on it that checks to see what the actual time taken was and what the delta is. And if the delta is higher than a particular threshold, you can basically trigger the creation. We also have an action in process builder and flow for creating a new document from a template. You can associate it with the work order record, and you can bring in even people who are not Salesforce license users, because you could mention people who are just Crypt users. And then now everybody's on the same page. You're like, hey, Arnab went out to install this cable box, and for whatever reason, it took him like 3 hours instead of 45 minutes. So what happened?
Arnab, he's such a slacker.
Yeah, exactly. What did I do? Did you take the wrong cable box with you? Did you not know where the, whatever the lines were? Sorry, I'm trying to think through.
You're really a fiber technician and not a cable box guy.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm in it. Maybe the people who provide all the inventory information are in it as well. Maybe they gave me the wrong box, or like something was off. And we can kind of get to closure quickly. And that document is going to remain visible on that work order object, which is kind of a cool thing as well, right? Like normally you'd have all these conversations in email or whatnot, and they're just outside of Salesforce. So, if I go on and take another gig, and somebody else is like reviewing all of the work orders that took too long to complete, they're basically doing a wild goose chase to go find out all that context. But now it'll just be there on the record. So I'm pretty fired up about this. As if you found out.
It's kind of like a rabbit hole, because when you get right down to it, it's like I always think I have this problem myself where I'm always thinking desktop first, because that's pretty much what I use all day is a desktop. Mm-hmm. Sometimes a laptop. But the fact is Quip's mobile app is incredibly strong. So if you actually have all this automation and integration linked with Quip, and you have folks who are accessing primarily data through their mobile, you now gave them a whole new avenue to be able to go through and do their own management within Salesforce, but through their Quip doc. Because all the things that we talked about earlier about saying, hey, now the approval's there, or the script's written, things like that, and you have the real live record in the Quip doc, well, that means the real live record is on the mobile app too.
That's exactly right.
If you're already using the Quip, you don't need to then go into Salesforce One, or I'm sorry, it's now Salesforce Mobile. Oh, branding. And one of these days I'm going to ask Parker Harris about why the brands change so much. They don't have to have both apps per se. They could just be 100% Quip oriented.
Yeah, or if Salesforce Mobile, it's I think the highest rated enterprise app that's available on the App Store, but it's also very powerful, so which means you're kind of going in and looking up a particular record and making changes to it yourself, whereas this thing can kind of change the game where you're basically being brought into a conversation automatically. And then if for whatever reason the amount of detail in the Quip document isn't sufficient, you can always tap in to the record and complete that final step. But at least all that context to get started, like, you're a sales manager, maybe you have a bunch of reps reporting up to you, and one of them is asking about a discount approval. You're probably getting text messages about these things and tearing your hair out as you're shuttling between meetings and on planes and things like that. And, my thesis is, this should just make life a lot easier for you. You can say yes, no pretty quickly. If you need to go in and actually trigger a full-blown quick action or something, then, Salesforce One is there for you. Or Salesforce Mobile. Now I'm making the same mistake that you are. Someone's going to come and slap you.
You're in the headquarters. They'll do it too.
Wait, is that marketing behind you?
Exactly. I think the kind of opportunities for people to take advantage of it are pretty endless.
And I can see certainly a future, and this is future. This is not like I have no viewership into what it is that you're planning or doing, but like I can see other types of Salesforce automation like coming in, like quick actions being buttons that are placed in a Quip document, and other kind of wild and crazy things.
Yeah, Mark, we're looking for feedback, right? Like this is kind of a V1 that we've shipped. Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you my main feedback. My main feedback right now is it needs to be an Agile Accelerator. Like Quip and Agile Accelerator need to basically become a s'more sandwich and be one, and like that's my big feedback, but that's my position.
Or can you go the other way around, instead of having a Salesforce document with a Lightning component that builds the template of a Quip doc, can you go from a Quip doc to creating new records in Salesforce? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't create a brand new record today from Quip, but there's no reason why we shouldn't do that going forward from a technology perspective. It's totally feasible. It's the question is, how do we package that up into an understandable experience that'll drive adoption and fundamentally make people's lives better? We were able to kind of come up with reasons why this particular flow of combining the two is actually fundamentally better. And yeah, I think we're just getting started. It's just there are a few customers who have already deployed, as I said, and there's a bunch more in the pipe. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, what they end up, where they end up sort of taking the existing functionality and what rough edges they run into, and it'll give me a bunch of signal to make it better.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see things like campaign planning for the year. Yeah. So for better or worse, I got thrown into marketing at my company, and I hate campaign planning. There's so much work that goes involved. And then I spent all this time creating records. I could see having a Quip doc with a spreadsheet embedded in there where you're having your little conversations about what do you want to do, what's want to get through. And then that spreadsheet is really just tied to the campaign record where your column headers represent the fields in the campaign. And you just fill out the spreadsheet and say, hey, does this look good to everyone? And you click a button, and that generates the campaign records from the spreadsheet versus having to manually go in and hit new and type everything in again and hit new and type everything in again.
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. I mean,
trademark WizardCast 2019.
If we end up baking that in out of the box, I'll try to see if I can get some accreditation or some logo or something for Brian. We'll see. Probably not allowed. I don't think you're allowed to ship Easter eggs like that anymore. But
wait. You mean you were allowed to ship Easter eggs prior to this?
No, we were never allowed.
it just wasn't. See, gosh darn it! Now I want to go through and try to find Easter eggs.
Let me know if you need me to cut that out.
I used to build Easter eggs when I was a Salesforce admin. I would do things like go through, I went through and I had a scrum meeting, and the person I was dealing with was really stressed out. She goes, honestly, Brian, all I want right now is unicorns and rainbows. So I was building a Visualforce page, and so I made it so if you clicked on the title of the page, jQuery launched literally a rainbow with flying unicorns and music going across the screen. So yeah, Easter eggs can be fun.
Did you guys have other questions? We've talked about use cases, we've talked about what's new in summer,
what's coming in winter 2020.
Yeah, what's going in winter? Well, one of the interesting things joining the Quip team has been that we ship pretty frequently. So yes, there are some there are some changes required in the Salesforce platform that would have to wait for the official winter 20 release. But because we kind of are an acquisition and we are still running somewhat separately, and we have some separate infrastructure, we have the flexibility to actually release more frequently. Last year, I think, and I don't know if this is exactly correct or not, someone was telling me that we shipped 84 times in 2018. So,
well, is that including hotfix patches and things like that? Because Salesforce technically does that too.
Yeah, they do it every week too. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of release more things, at least on the Quip side.
That's news to me. I didn't realize you technically are on a semi-separate release schedule. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it means we can be we can, especially early on in the cycle, because we're just getting some adoption and people are deploying things. As a product manager, it gives me a little bit more flexibility where, okay, if I see something where I'm duh, I should have caught that. That was just a mistake. We should have figured out that people would need that. We can fix that if it's entirely on our side. And it happens, as a product person, you think of a specific use case in a scenario and you prioritize that and you want to polish it. But until you start getting that first level of feedback, at least you're kind of going off of your intuition and your existing experience. So, and you'll not be right all the time. In fact, you'll definitely be wrong most of the time. Yeah,
fast and fail hard.
Yeah. But I think some of the things that I'm excited about that are maybe coming soon, safe harbor, whatnot. One is, you were always able to, I think we launched this about a year ago. you were able to export Salesforce reports into Quip as live data. But that button to do it only existed inside of Salesforce. So if you were writing a new Quip document and you wanted to add in a spreadsheet that would actually bind to a Salesforce report and stay up to date, there was a workaround, but it was kind of kludgy where you had to know the exact syntax of the formula that would bring it in. And now we'll support, just like bringing in a Salesforce record, you can just type in @report, and it'll embed in a Salesforce report. It'll give you a little picker. You can choose from your most recently viewed reports, and boom, it's going to show up in your document. And I think that's kind of a cool use case. Like, again, obviously reports are viewable inside Salesforce, but once you export them into Quip, you can have conversations about them in real time. You can like build charts using Quip charts like quickly. You don't have to have the ability to like actually fundamentally change, because most of the time you probably don't want to. If you're doing what if analysis, the underlying report itself, if you're doing some manipulations just using functions and formulas. Yeah, so that'd be kind of cool. We're thinking of also supporting charts or dashboards in that same way, where you can bring in a dashboard. And then again, the whole idea is to have a conversation around it. Like, let's say you have a weekly sales team meeting and you basically review the dashboard and report every week. Well, if it's in the Quip document and it's called your weekly team meeting, it'll be refreshing like every time somebody opens it up. So through the week, people can be leaving comments on it. And by the time you actually have your meeting, it could be actually about next steps and what you want to do in reaction to the data, versus people like, getting together in the room and then having a conversation about questions that they might have, and whatnot. So, we use it very heavily, obviously, within the Quip team. And one of the really interesting things about it is about sort of this culture of action and using documents that are live that people can be updating constantly in real time and having these async conversations. Is meetings are very productive. Like, it's not like I'm not going to say that my meeting load has gone down to zero or something. Like, that's not really the point of it. The whole idea is to make it more productive, because by the time people are coming in, you've already read the bug reports, seen the dashboard snapshot from our backend tracking databases, so you know how many people are running into it. You've asked questions to the engineer about, hey, is there a workaround using X, Y, or Z? They've responded, and you're getting pretty quickly to the meat of it when you meet face to face, versus having to unpack that whole discussion live.
I do want to thank you for all the work that you did on the process builder and flow. It was a delight having you as a product manager in that team, and I look forward to seeing what you do on Quip. I'm a little saddened by the fact that my company does not have the premium Quip subscription, so I think I'm not going to be able to use a lot of the fun things that you're sharing, but I look forward to what comes out, so maybe I can make the excuse to make the purchase. But if there's other people other than Mark and I that would like to share feedback, I know you're a wonderful person who actually likes to hear from customers. How would you like people to reach out to you?
I mean, I think the Trailblazer community is a good place, right? I'm there. You can send me a direct message, or there actually is a group called Quip that's a public group inside the Trailblazer community, and you can mention me there. So that might be easiest for folks who are like in the Salesforce ecosystem. But other than that, if you already are a Quip user, you can write up your feedback in a Quip document and then, just like share it with Arnab at quip.com, and it'll show up as a notification for me, and we can actually use the product to collect feedback and discuss things. And it'll all be real time, and it'll work on your phone and all that kind of good stuff. So both are great options. Yeah, I mean, having been a long-time Salesforce PM, I still obviously check out the Trailblazer community. I keep seeing success.
I do the same thing. And so the URL still says success. So,
it's like visual confirmation. But yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to start seeing some people send me feedback using Quip. I know some of the MVPs actually have a Quip doc, which they use for feedback. And Phil Weinmeister, who's an MVP I've worked with in the past, shared one with me. And that was great because like the benefit of it is like you see a lot of content, but like you can actually like take a look at the change log and the history to see what people were saying when and all the conversations that are threaded and kind of catch up quickly. So it'll be exciting to get it in that format. But I know like, a bunch of listeners may not have it as yet, and that's fine. So you can always find me in the Trailblazer community, and that's all good.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know you shared a few things with us, some videos in YouTube, so we'll share those links in the show notes, as well as the link to the Trailblazer Quip public group that Arnab mentioned. And if I can do the search, I will also put the link for the Salesforce account planning that we talked about in the show notes. So, put the headphones down and look at the show notes, I guess is what I'm saying. So thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk with us.
Thank you, Brian and Mark. Yeah, always exciting to talk to you guys. And thank you for having me on WizardCast.
Oh, thank you.
WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, and our intern this episode was Arnab. Arnab can be our intern this episode as well as our guest.
That's right. And you can be an intern too. Just follow us at WizardCast_pod on Twitter.
Or just come up to us during events and then take a poach. Oh my goodness. I should take a poacher to jail day. Especially if they're taking bonobos. Oh my gosh, does that mean Salesforce is a poacher because they're taking bonobos?
No, we regret the error.
Or you see us at events, take a photo with us, tweet us, or share it someplace on social media, and we'll add you to the list.
Have a joke, interview suggestion, or other comments? Let us know. You can call and leave a voice recording at 608-492-0321 or email wizardcast@thewizardnews.com.
And we want to hear from you. Do you have a question you would like to ask Parker Harris? Even if it's just one question, what would it be?
Submit your question by going to bit.ly/ParkerQuestions and fill out our short form. Seriously, submit the question.
And eventually we're going to do another idea exchange highlight. It doesn't even have to be your idea out on the idea exchange. It could be something you voted for, something you looked at and go, I don't understand this. But we want to know, what idea would you like Mark and I to talk about?
Go to bit.ly/idea highlight, all lowercase, to submit an idea to us.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WizardCast and receive our next episode automatically.
And please post reviews on Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, and share this episode. It helps others to hear what you just had to endure.
Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm feeling like it's all coming together. Yes, the note from IT was a setback, as Brian now knows about the episode number overflow exploit. But it's only a setback. It's only a matter of time. Yes. Only a matter of time.
Mark, are you monologuing again?
No, not at all, Brian. It's just another one of my classic episode ending jokes.
Thanks for listening. I haven't seen any official disclosed financial terms, but I did. That was terrible.
Disclosed.
Man,
Oh my God.
This is water, right? It is not.